be going to Psalm 115, please. Psalm 115, please. So good to see you this evening. This week we are considering idolatry. And tonight I would like to consider a basic principle that we can learn from idols and try to apply it to something that we find every minute of our days. You'll see where I go with this in a moment as we consider technology this evening. This evening, what I would like to do then is I would like for us to consider what wisdom can we glean from Scripture about idols as it relates to our technology. Now, let me go ahead and say this at the very beginning of the sermon. I am not arguing that technology is inherently an idol. If technology were inherently an idol, I would recommend we throw them on the floor, smash them to pieces, take them out to the river, and send them downstream. There's not an inherent idolatry in technology, but rather what we're going to try to do is learn from the principle of idolatry and glean wisdom for how we can better use them as wise servants of God. So 2 questions we're going to pose tonight. The first is, what does technology do to us? The second is, what are we to do with technology? Let's begin first. What does technology do to us? Psalm 115, beginning in verse 1. Psalm 115, beginning in verse 1. Not to us, O Yahweh, not to us, but to your name give glory, for the sake of your steadfast love and your faithfulness. Why should the nations say, where is their God? Our God is in the heavens. He does all that he pleases. Their idols are silver and gold, the work of human hands. They have mouths but don't speak, eyes but don't see, ears but don't hear, noses that don't smell, hands that don't feel, feet that don't walk, and they don't make a sound in their throat. They don't speak. Those who make them become like them, so do all who trust in them. Although this is a short sentence, I think it is a very, very, very powerful principle. Verse 8. Those who make them become like them. This is the principle from the psalm. You become what you behold. There's different alliterative ways to say this. You resemble what you revere. You walk as you worship. You become what you behold. Notice what's happened. Israel has made idols out of silver and gold. Go back to the golden calf. Israel in their history had made a golden calf. It has a mouth, but it can't say anything. It has eyes, but it can't see anything. It has ears, but it can't hear anything. It has a nose and can't smell anything. What then happens? You behold a God that can't hear. After a while, you yourself can't hear. You behold a God that can't see. After a while, you yourself can't see. We've already read this week from Isaiah 6, where Yahweh told Isaiah, go to this people that see but can't hear, that see but can't, well, goodness, I'll get it out. Go to this people that have eyes but can't see and ears but can't hear. That principle from Isaiah 6:9 is carried into the book of Matthew 13 through 10. Where, if you look at Matthew 13:10 following, the principle in that case is, if you behold an idol that can't see, you become blind. If you behold an idol that can't hear, you yourself can't hear. Again, you become what you behold. On Sunday evening, I was talking to Dale, and in passing, he was talking about his kids and made the statement that has much profundity to it. You choose your friends, and then your friends influence you. That's how it is with idols. You craft your idols, then your idols recreate you. You become what you behold. Here was the warning that God gave to Israel in Psalm 115. Behold an idol they can't see. Behold an idol they can't hear. Behold an idol that can't walk. Behold an idol that can't speak. Those who make them become like them. Before we apply this principle to technology, I want to consider, you become what you behold. You become what you behold. if you really want to change who you are and how you live, start beholding the living God. Amen. We behold idols on a daily basis. I got to have lunch with Xander today. It was a great pleasure. And I asked Xander, what are the idols of your school? He didn't miss a beat. Popularity. It's not something tangible, but it's something that he's forced to bow down to in peer pressure. But like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you refuse to bow. You behold the idol, you become like that idol. What then happens if we spend our lives beholding the crucified, exalted Christ? The one who served and loved and graciously gave of himself for humanity. We ourselves, in beholding that God and beholding the crucified, exalted Son of God, will then be transformed into people who are giving, loving servants. You become what you behold. Why is the world around us filled with selfishness and envy and strife? Because the gods they behold are filled with selfishness. One more time, I know I'm sounding redundant, but I really want this to stay in your hearts. You become what you behold. Well, what in the world does this have to do with technology? Psalm 115, which there's a rendition of it in Isaiah 44, so I'm not exactly sure who wrote the one in Psalm 115, but I know Isaiah, of course, said the one in Isaiah 44. I really don't think Isaiah, or the psalmist, was really envisioning the Pixel 5 whenever he wrote Psalm 115. But I hope the application should be evident. You become what you behold. Now, let me just be real with y'all for a minute. How much time of my day do I spend on this thing? You can actually go into your settings and find out charts that will show you how much time you spend collectively on the device and then with individual apps. If you've never done that before, I am perfectly fine with you taking your phone out now and doing it. Because I'm going to take pictures of your faces once you see it, okay? We may think that I may sit there in the morning for, 5 seconds and check the news, and it quickly turns into 50 minutes. Quickly sit down to check social media, and whew, those 3 hours went by fast. How much time do we spend beholding these? Now, if my papaw were here this evening, who I think is 86, my papaw would be sitting here thinking, I ain't never going to use one of them things. Well, my papaw has a television. And I've noticed that especially for those who are retired and at home a lot, they may not spend their devices behind the newest iPhone. I'm not an Apple person, so what, iPhone 13 or whatever it is now? But are going to spend countless hours a day beholding a television. Whichever media it is that you spend your time beholding, that media is inherently shaping who you are. Let's consider this for a moment. I'd like to make the claim that the medium is the message. This is not to do with me. Marshall McLuhan, a media theorist of the 20th century, said this, and it's awful catchy. The medium is the message. What does this statement mean? The message is what is said. The medium is how it's transmitted. What this means with technology is it matters far less the content that you're looking at as opposed to how you're accessing the content. If you're on your phone, I don't really care what app it is. The basic sensory experience of that app is going to be similar to 99% of the other apps. Candy Crush feels a lot like Facebook. TikTok feels a lot like YouTube. Snapchat feels a whole lot like my newsfeed. how these messages are transmitted are the media. And who, even 30 years ago, would have ever guessed that we carry little cell phone, television, radio, camera, who knows what else these things are, in our pockets? The medium is the message. I would like to exhort you to not consider not only what content you are taking in, I want you to consider how that content is being transmitted to you. You know I could talk for hours about the dangers and the problem of the content, the lust and the profanity and everything else that fills the content. But let's take the content to a morally neutral zone. It matters not only what you're looking at, it also matters how you're accessing it. Our devices, and I'm going to argue that cell phones are far more similar to television than they are to a landline. Y'all, that's something that has a cord in it, okay? Whenever you consider a cell phone, it's really like carrying around miniature televisions in our pocket. They're filled with sounds and colors and continually new information that's changing. The medium is the message. Two different modal qualities of cell phones and technology that I would like to demonstrate. Let me say that in a bit different words. There's two different aspects of the medium that I would like for us to consider, that we are beholding and then perhaps becoming. The first is cognitive. Cognitively, within our minds, what is the nature of a cell phone or a television? In one phrase, I'm going to argue the cognitive structure of a cell phone is divided attention. It's a paradox. David, you get that? It's a paradox. Divided attention. What does that mean? It means that our phones want our attention, right? Facebook and Instagram and YouTube spend millions of dollars in research trying to understand how they can make us spend more time on their individual apps. Because the more time we spend on them, the more money they make. And did anybody know that money is the god of this world? But what happens? If you're on Facebook, do you just stay on one post for 30 minutes and just savor that post? No. You're attentive, but then it's divided. Let's start scrolling. And man, I have a feeling that Gen Y and Gen Z are going to have thumbs stronger than any that the world has ever seen. Because what are we continually doing? We're attentive, and yet our attention is divided. That's exactly how television works. Why is it that commercials last no longer than 30 seconds unless it's a good Super Bowl commercial? Why? Because it wants you to be attentive, but that attention is inherently divided. What is the cognitive structure of both cell phones and television? Divided attention. Socially then, what is the nature of the media of either cell phones or television? One word: isolation. Isolation. Think through television for a moment. I am the most annoying person in the world to watch television with, because now that I have the pause button, I want to pause it every 5 seconds and talk about what we just saw. I mean, especially if it's something that I'm passionate about and love. Like, if anybody has seen the Imagineering Project on Disney Plus and you'd like to talk for hours afterward about it, oh, it's like the best thing I've seen in years. Like, if I try to watch the Imagineering Project, which tells this history of Imagineering, which is the research and development part of Disney, like, oh, it's amazing. I could, like, stop and, like, talk through that. But you know what the problem with that is? That's not how you watch television. Because then I have my wife who says, Ryan, it is taking us 10 hours to get through a 1-hour show, and we have 3 children. We don't have time for this. Can we please just watch it? And she's right. I'm not good at watching television. If you're good at watching television, you sit there silently and take it in yourself. If you're doing what a cell phone wants you to do, you sit there and silently take it in yourself. isolation. Now let's apply the principle. We, for more hours than any of us would want to admit, spend our time on technologies whose media are structured in a way that cognitively demand divided attention and socially demand isolation. What then do we become when you behold? We become divided in our attention, and we become isolated. The National Institute of Drug Abuse has conducted what they call the Monitoring the Future survey, which is a national survey of high school students since 1975. Perhaps in the nature of the sermon, you can Google this afterward if you'd like. It's called Monitoring the Future. They have updated graphics, and it's absolutely amazing, the quality of the research. What they have done recently over the past, really 2 decades, is try to trace more the digital effects. But I'd like to just show you 2 charts. They have hundreds. I'd like to just show you 2 to demonstrate the effect that technology has had both on divided attention and on social isolation. Okay? I know for some of the eyes in the back, I'm going to have to explain this, and I'm happy to email this to anybody who'd like to see it in more detail. This chart right here looks at the number of times a week that teenagers are hanging out with their friends. Okay? This chart looks at how many times a week are teenagers hanging out with their friends. As you go up on the y-axis, you are seeing your friends more per week. This x-axis is telling us the years. If you'll notice, from about 1976 all the way over to around 2005, it's about the same. You work from 1976 to 2005, it's very similar. But then in 2007, whenever the iPhone was released, do you notice the downward nature of the curve? Teenagers are hanging out with friends less frequently than they were before the introduction of the cell phone. Why? Because I don't have to go see my friends if I can TikTok with them. I don't have to see my friends if I can Snapchat with them. We're becoming more isolated. And lest we who are older become arrogant. Are we any better? Let's be real. This chart right here considers feelings of loneliness. Feelings of loneliness. In this case, as you work up the y-axis, you are feeling more lonely. This likewise is looking at the number of years. Right here, whenever this 2007, whenever the iPhone was released, do you notice that this trend is exponential? Feelings of loneliness have increased exponentially since the introduction of the cell phone. Didn't these things promise to connect us more and bring us closer together and really give us rich community? If we're real, actually in trying to connect with somebody else, it's making me more isolated. Now, this is data, okay? This is data observation type stuff I talked about last night. Let me tell you my personal testimony. I'm going to get subjective here and testify, okay? I was the generation that got to first be on Facebook. I can remember when Facebook was only for college students. Did y'all know that Facebook was only for college students? And then all of you older folks got on there and ruined it. And for about 5 years of my life, I had Facebook on my phone. And I thought it was making me more connected with people around me. And then 2016 came with the presidential election. And I started developing anger against people who should be my friends. Because I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, the things that were being put on there were so vicious and mean. Jessica finally looked at me one night and said, Ryan, you are angry every time you get off Facebook. You know what I did? I deleted it. I still have it on my computer. I get on about once a month. Jessica checks Facebook every day. She has a 15-minute timer. We have not let the idol of the age replace our social connectedness. For any who are uber passionate about this, I would urge you to watch the TED Talk by Sherry Turkle, who's a professor of psychology at MIT, where she talks about being alone together. Turkle's talk was existentially moving to me, because it realized the thing that was promising me more knowledge was actually making me dumber. The thing that was promising me, I about said the S word, but I know some of you parents don't like it. The thing that was promising me connections was actually making me lonelier. I was becoming what I had beheld. Well, I'm halfway done, and aren't you glad you came tonight? Isn't this just an uplifting sermon that we all feel good about? If I were to do the invitation, perhaps half of us would be on the front row. But let's talk about good news. Let's talk about good news. We do not have to let our technologies use us. Rather, we can use them. I pray you think me not a hypocrite tonight for having a Pixel. We can use our technology without letting it use us. How? I want to go to a very unexpected place for this. I want to look at 2 Corinthians chapter 3. 2 Corinthians chapter 3. This is a passage that we could look at for a great amount of time. It's one of the deepest passages that the Apostle Paul wrote, talking about the ministry of the Spirit. But notice what he says in 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 1. 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 1. Are we beginning to commend ourselves again? Or do we need, as some do, letters of recommendation to you or from you? You yourselves are our letter of recommendation, written on our hearts, to be known and read by all. And you show that you are a letter from Christ, delivered to us, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not with tablets of stone, but on tablets of human hearts. Do you notice what the Apostle Paul does? In writing a letter, he says, you yourselves are a letter. He's talking here about media. A letter is a medium. And he's saying, you are a medium. Now, if the Apostle Paul were with us today, if we could conjecture for a moment, would he have used email and texting? I have no doubt he would have, because he's writing a letter. But what's the purpose of the letter? Go down with me. Verse 18. And we all, with unveiled face, beholding the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to the other. For this comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. What is the hope that each of us will reach? That we will see the Lord face to face. Face-to-face communication is unmediated. If I email you, the email is the medium. If I send you a letter, the letter is the medium. If I text you, the cell phone is the medium. If I call you, the phone is the medium. If you watch me on YouTube tonight, YouTube is the medium. But if I talk to Bill face to face, that is an unmediated interaction. Which one is the Apostle Paul longing for and wanting with God? To this point in human history, Our experience of our Creator has been mediated. At Sinai, God came down and spoke, but they did not see the Lord face to face. Exodus 33, Moses talked with the Lord as a friend, and yet not even Moses saw the face of the Lord. Jesus Christ has come, and we have beheld his glory. And yet our high priest has gone back to the heavenly realm, and he is taking us back to the Father. And we have hope that through Jesus, the first fruits of new creation, that one day we will have a face-to-face relationship with our Creator. Amen. I don't see God face-to-face now. One day I will. 1 Corinthians 13 rings in my mind. I'd love to talk to y'all about that afterward. It's a fantastic chapter. We hope to see the Lord face-to-face. And do you know what we get to do in this life? We get to commune with one another face-to-face. This is research from the Pew Research Center, PEW, Pew Research Center, nationally reputable. They, for years, have tried to understand why we are using technology. Again, simply for heuristics' sake, I'm going to use one from teenagers. Notice this chart. The caption at the top says, most teens who use their cell phones do it to pass time, connect with others, learn new things. Okay? This is a chart that is mapping out the percentage of U.S. cell phone users ages 13 to 17 who say that when they're using their phone, what are they doing? And as you work across, this is often, sometimes, rarely, never. For the most part, why are teenagers 13 to 17 using their phone? Just passing the time. That is the dominant reason that we use our cell phones. Just passing the time. If you're standing in line at the DMV, are you talking to the person in front of you, or are you checking your email? If you're on a bus, are you talking to the person beside you, or are you texting? I'll be real. I'm on my phone most of the time. This is talking about me. Now, this is not all doom and gloom. There's a great many teenagers, number two, who are using their phones to connect with people or learn new things. What do we have to do? Rather than being used by our phones, we must actively, wisely use our phones. Two recommendations that I would like to make as we consider whether we are used by or using our phones. First, let me go back to the two qualities of digital media that I mentioned a moment ago. Cognitively, cell phones are demanding our divided attention. That is the very structure of digital information, demanding divided attention. Are we using our media to interact with other people? Or are we using our media merely to pass the time? Mario and Danielle have been wonderful hosts this week. But the only bad thing I have to say about their home, AT&T doesn't work in their basement. It's AT&T's fault, it's not theirs. And every time I walk upstairs, I have text after text and voicemails and all other type things. And I have brothers and sisters from camp and back home and family members that are interacting with me. I'm not just on my phone, dividedly attentive to the news feed or Facebook or what have you. I'm using my phone to connect. After I leave here this Friday, I'm not going to be face-to-face with any of you for a while, but I can still stay in touch. And it's a blessing. I mean, I have had the chance to interact with people more from different states over the last year. I mean, it's a blessing. How are you using your device? to be dividedly attentive to the information it feeds you, or to use it to connect with other people? Notice the difference? Is it using you to feed you the information it wants, or are you using it to connect with the people that you can enrich their lives? Use it to enrich relationships. Secondly, our cell phones are demanding social isolation. Psychologists now have created a term for phone snubbing, phubbing. You know what it means to phub somebody? It means they're trying to talk to you, and the whole time, you're just doing this. Be present in the people that you are with. Jessica and I have a rule in our home that we do not take these things out at the dinner table. If there's something at church that I know is going to come up, we'll talk about it beforehand. Sweetie, I think I'm going to have a phone call from one of the elders. I'm going to have to take this. Okay, got it. Thanks for the heads up. But 99% of the time, we are active. Sometimes, I know I shouldn't do this, but someday I'm going to, y'all. Whenever I'm in a restaurant and I see a family where the parents are on their phone and the children aren't, I want to take those phones and throw them in the water. Oh, it burns me up. Like, are you really telling me that the newest YouTube channel, whatever, is more interesting than what your child has to tell you? My children are hilarious, I think. Dinner time at our house is a blast. I mean, I could tell stories. I know this has been a heavy sermon, so let me tell just one light story. Brooklyn, about a month ago. Not exactly sure where this came from, but we're at the dinner table having a lively dinner. The boys have already gotten half their food on the floor, already on their third thing of tea, and we're just having a great dinner. Brooklyn puts her hands through her shorts and says, "I'm a caterpillar," and then just starts dancing in her seat like she's a caterpillar. And then she does other animal imitations about she's going to be a bird. And there was nothing on YouTube I could have found that would have been more entertaining than that. I secretly got a picture of it. I'm never going to show it after she's 13. I promise I'll delete it. But let us not use. Let me rephrase my verb. I need passive voice. Let us not be used by our phones. Let us use them. Rather than mindlessly scrolling on Facebook or Snapchat or TikTok or whatever it is, call somebody. Rather than mindlessly scrolling, text somebody. Connect with someone. Cultivate a relationship. And y'all, there's so many blessings that can come from this. FaceTime and Google Duo. Y'all, those have been the biggest blessing in my parents' life. My parents come up to see our children every weekend, but they live an hour and a half away. I think we have duoed with them almost every single day that my kids have been alive. My kids have gotten to see and connect with their grandparents almost every day of their life. It's a blessing. But when we're done connecting, it's time to turn it off. Are we longing for relationship? Are we longing for communion? Are we longing for participation? Or are we merely attending one another's presence? Last night, are we merely seeing the images that our phones are feeding us? Or are we listening to the voices of the people that love us? You become what you behold. Let's close by going to Psalm 115. Psalm 115, verse 8. Those who make them become like them, so do all who trust in them. O Israel, trust in Yahweh. He is their help and their shield. O house of Aaron, trust in Yahweh. He is their help and their shield. You who fear Yahweh, trust in Yahweh. He is their help and their shield. Yahweh has remembered us. He will bless us. He will bless the house of Israel. He will bless the house of Aaron. He will bless those who fear Yahweh, both small and great. May Yahweh give you increase, you and your children. May you be blessed by Yahweh, he who made the heaven. The heavens are Yahweh's heavens, but the earth he has given to the children of earth. The dead do not praise Yahweh, nor do any go down in silence. But we will bless Yahweh from this time forth and forevermore. Here is my exhortation this evening. Tonight when you go home, leave your television off. Leave it off. Tonight when you go home, leave your phone vibrate. Don't take it out. Don't take it out. Commune with the Lord. Commune with your family. For those of you who live by yourself, commune with your Father in heaven. Commune with your high priest. Commune with the Spirit. Let us not be used, but may we use them wisely. Because here's what God has done for us, and here's why he's worth communing with. Our God created because he loved us. And we were selfish, so we rebelled. But our Father didn't leave us helpless. He provided the sacrifice. The Son has given the sacrifice and defeated the idols. And the Spirit gives new life and regenerates us. Because God has done this, we can respond to him. Not seeing, but hearing the good news. Believing and giving him faithfulness. Repenting from the bad things we've done into the righteous things we should do. Confessing with mouth and with deed that he indeed is the Lord. And being immersed from death into newness of life. The one true and living God calls this very evening. If you need to respond, come forward as we stand.
Hear the sweet voice of Jesus.